In Valhalla Hills, the story basically deals with the fact that Odin is angry and doesn't want to let the Vikings back into Asgard. All their lives they fought bravely, ultimately died honorable deaths and want to end up in Valhalla, celebrating orgies and getting blasted on mead. Now they stand there at the gates to Asgard and knock, but no one lets them in. Talk about getting screwed. So, the player's goal is always to get his Vikings up a mountain. A magic portal stands at the top. You have to make sure that the Vikings have enough to eat and dwellings to live in. The point is to have each Viking earn as much honor as possible and that he manages to be allowed to enter Valhalla. We didn't want to create an RTS where you actually click on a Viking and all it turns into is a click race. We wanted this to appeal to guys like us, fans of good old classic strategy games, the kind of game we had always wanted to develop.
Hey!
Yeah, we were pretty surprised when all of a sudden an external consultant was assigned to us to develop Valhalla Hills. Oh well, somebody naturally had the bright idea that he'd be the right guy for the job and help us out. He is a bit weird, though.
Guck mal, der Bär. Ganz gefährlich.
How did we come up with the Viking theme? Well, why not? We've been dealing with Vikings pretty much ever since the studio started. Cultures 1 was about Vikings. We think it's an exciting topic. So we said, come on, even if they don't really have any horns, let's do it. In designing the game, we let ourselves be influenced a bit by more recent games on Steam. In designing the characters, we focused on giving the Vikings a closely knit, likable look. I can even give them their own name. Then they're not just any old Vikings, they're my Vikings that I recognize. What I personally like a lot is that it doesn't take itself too seriously, visually speaking. We didn't use a realistic style and chose a more comic style on purpose. Visually, Valhalla Hills definitely sets itself apart because, to me, it's one of the few strategy games that goes literally on a vertical plane. We basically introduced a new dimension. Most games happen on a 2D layer. We go up that mountain, which naturally includes certain difficulties if you want to move or build.
Has Gürtür gerülmt, Kasitum, Kasabetichazo, Kisai.
Yeah, the Viking has no choice. He has to find his way in the circumstances he's faced with. He just strolls into a forest, chops down the first tree he sees, takes the logs and builds a hut. Then he goes to a lake, grabs a fish out of the water and eats it. It's in the nature of Vikings to settle down wherever they feel comfortable. You can see the enemy forces approaching him from up there. Then the battle's on against our bows and battle axes. It's obvious that they're doing a very good job of it, and yeah, they've gloriously won that battle. Combat is naturally a very important part of Valhalla Hills because Vikings tended to be a warlike folk, and there are a lot of options for going into battle. I can equip them with axes or bows, and it's also important to supply them with enough beer because it makes them fight better. Later on in the game, it could also happen that the opponents in the portal are too strong. Frost giants, for example, or large masses of enemy forces who might be able to defeat my Vikings. Later in the game, you also have frost giants as opponents, and naturally they're much tougher to take down. The Vikings don't have much of a chance against them, and, sorry to say, in this case they lost. Yeah, Vikings like their peace and quiet, idyllic scenes, but in the end they can defend themselves too, which means if someone disturbs them or hassles them, they'll get a taste of the Viking axe. The reason to look forward to Valhalla Hills is mainly that it's something new, but still contains classic elements. Because it's a one-of-a-kind mix at the moment. Because there's really something fresh in this scenario that stays enjoyable throughout lots of maps. Because we poured a lot of joy, love, and effort into it. And because it's a really good game. And also because with Valhalla Hills, all the maps are randomly generated. They're new over and over again. In principle, it's a game that never ends.